Are you a farmer or butcher ready to master direct-to-consumer marketing and meat success? Then you're in the right place. I'm Jared Hawken, the founder of Chop Local. Each episode of this podcast features interviews with farmers and butchers who have built successful direct-to-consumer meat businesses, and they're going to share their secrets for success with you. From actionable tips to inspiring stories, this podcast has ingredients you will need to succeed in the meat business. After the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social. And check out the rest of our educational resources at choplocaluniversity.com. Now, let's turn it over to my business partner, Katie, to get started.
Before we get into this next episode, I wanted to let you know about one of our other resources that we offer. If you are in a hurry to see meat marketing results fast, then the Meat Commerce Essentials course is perfect for you. It covers everything that you need to know to sell meat online successfully, and it's presented in short video snippets to get you the info that you need to put into action as quickly as possible. For a limited time, we're offering our podcast listeners $100 off the course using coupon code POD100. That's POD100. Just visit choplocaluniversity.com to find the course and be sure to enter POD100 at checkout.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Meat Success Podcast. I'm Katie Olthoff. I am the co-founder of Chop Local and Chop Local University. And for this episode, I am getting ready to leave actually in about an hour or two. I'm leaving to travel up to La Crosse, Wisconsin to speak at the Annual Grassworks Conference. My presentation is called E-Commerce That Works, Proven Strategies for Direct-to-Consumer Farms. And it's actually the same presentation that I used last fall at the National Ag Marketing Summit, and has a lot of really great information that we've kind of gathered over the years from both our own experience in e-commerce, selling meat direct to consumer, but also from a national survey that we do. That survey, I know many of you have answered it, and we really appreciate that. We've done the survey for 4 years in a row now, and we've gotten responses from farmers and butcher shops in all 50 states. And the survey is all about marketing your meat online and your online sales and what has worked for you and what really hasn't. The purpose of this survey is to help us develop more educational resources that can help you in your meat marketing. It also helps us understand what is working so that we can share those ideas with other farmers and butcher shops selling their meat online. So I'm going to be doing this presentation tomorrow. It is about an hour total. Today, what I wanted to do for the podcast is just share a portion of that presentation. It's something that I talk a lot about when I do webinars or presentations like this, but I don't think it's something that we've touched on in the podcast. And so I thought today would be a really good opportunity for me to be able to talk to you about this concept and what we've learned over the years. Okay, so when we started Chop Local in 2020, we thought that we needed to make our software work in a way that would allow our meat producers to sell by exact weight. So to introduce this concept, I want to tell you some stories about my own meat buying experiences before we were raising our own meat, before we were buying directly from farms, selling direct to consumer. When I was a young newlywed, we were on a very limited budget, and I went to my favorite local grocery store, Fairway, by the way, for those of you here in Iowa or in the Midwest, and they have a beautiful meat counter, and I actually knew how to use it. I think that's one thing that a lot of people are scared to use a meat counter now, and a lot of grocery stores don't have them anymore. But they had a wonderful meat counter, and I would go up to that meat counter, and I would look to see what was on sale, and then I would tell them what I needed. And one of my favorite things to do was make French dips using an arm roast or chuck roast. And so I would go and I say, okay, I need an arm roast. They would get out the arm roast, they would weigh it, they would put it on the scale, and then they would tell me what that total was going to be. And being on a really tight budget, a lot of times I would go, let's go for a smaller one. Okay, so I could go back and forth with the butcher. It was priced per pound, but if it was out of my price range, I could go for a smaller cut. Same thing for us if we were going to splurge on steak at the time. Again, I might choose a smaller portion size in order to stay within my budget. But the way that meat is bought or priced in a grocery store is typically based on the exact weight. Even if you don't go to the meat counter, if they have a case that has, refrigerated cuts in a styrofoam tray wrapped in plastic, the sticker on there tells you exactly how much that meat is going to cost when you get up to the register. So you can plan your budget and know that it's going to work for you. Now, when farmers started selling their meat online, they thought that the best way to do it would be in that same way, to do it with an exact price based exactly on the weight of that cut of meat. And when we started Chop Local in 2020, we thought that we needed to create software that would do that as well. So basically, if you had a chuck roast that was 2.5 pounds, and your price per pound for chuck roast was $9.99, the software would take $9.99 times 2.5, and it would charge the customer exactly what that cut would be if you were at the grocery store, at the meat counter, something like that. So that was a big thing that we talked a lot about in the beginning of Chop Local, and we really spent a lot of time with developers trying to figure out how to make that happen. And then we did our first annual survey, and we were really surprised by the results. It turns out only 50% of the farms selling online were using that direct weight system, and the other 50% were using a by the cut, or what we call a weight variation. So instead of calculating exactly, let's say the chuck roast was 2.63 pounds, instead of calculating exactly 2.63 pounds, you might have a setting in there that says chuck roasts between 2.5 and 2.75 pounds are going to be, let me try to do math in my head right now, they're going to be $24.99. And it doesn't matter if the chuck roast is 2.52 or if the chuck roast is 2.72. If it's in that weight range, it's going to be $24.99, and that's what it is. What we found out after talking to some of these farmers and ranchers who have done it both ways, one in particular, he was in Nevada, actually told me that he had done the exact weight, or some people call it a catch weight system, and when he switched to doing the weight variations, his price or his sales increased dramatically. And when he talked to his customers, he felt like that was because there was less uncertainty. The customer knew exactly what their meat was going to cost when they purchased it online. Versus with a catch weight system, a lot of times what happens is the customer puts down a deposit online, and then they put down a deposit online for let's say a chuck roast. And then when the farmer or butcher shop goes to fulfill that order, they type in exactly what the chuck roast weighed, and then the customer is charged the remainder. But especially on things like roast, even steaks, high value items like filet, there's a wide variation in what those prices can be, and you don't know, the customer doesn't have an opportunity to say, we prefer smaller portion sizes, or a smaller cut would fit better into our budget. And so they might end up with the biggest chuck roast that you have, and that might not be what their family needs. Or they might end up with the biggest steak that you have, and that's out of their price range. And so the customer, as they're thinking about making this order, they're thinking, I don't know if I really want to go through with this because I don't know what my total cost is going to be. So the way that we handle this, like I said, is we do these cut weight variations. You can see here on this filet mignon, a lot of people on Chop Local will do a 2-ounce increment on filet because that price does change dramatically from 5 to 7 ounces to 7 to 8 ounces. On cuts like roasts, where the price per cut or the price per pound isn't as high, we do larger weight variations, sometimes a 1/4 pound, sometimes a 1/2 pound. We kind of leave that up to the farmer. But we really don't want you to have to put in the weight of every single item into your inventory. And we also don't want that uncertainty for customers. As one of my farmers told me, he switched from a platform that did this exact weight pricing to our platform. He said, customers either, when he was on the exact weight system, customers either didn't purchase because they were confused, or they made a purchase and they got their final later and they felt like they'd been manipulated. And he said, I remember him saying, either way, that's not a great situation. You don't want to make customers feel stupid or make them feel like you tricked them into spending more money. And that's what he felt like that system did. So going to a system like this with weight ranges has been really helpful for him and for his customers, and just brings a lot more clarity. The way that it works in most of these systems is you create the master product and then you create variations that specify the weight range, and then you can change the product. So if you're watching this or if you're listening to this, I am showing a couple graphics or screen grabs so you can see what this looks like in action. But for example, on our system, you can keep track of your inventory for the different size ranges, and you can change the price for each of those size ranges too. So how this works a little bit differently for farmers when you're doing the weight variations versus doing the exact weight. If you're doing exact weight, you can just put in a number of products. Let's say you bring home your beef or your meat from the locker, from the processor, and you say, I've got 10 roasts, and you just put in your inventory as 10 roasts. And somebody buys a roast, they put down a deposit, you go to the freezer, you pick out a roast, you look at the exact weight, you type in that exact weight when you are packing up your order, and the customer then gets charged for the total, okay? There's less work when you're bringing it home and putting it in the freezer, but there's more work when you're going to fulfill the orders, because you have to put down every single weight, and you have to make sure that that customer, you have to enter that on the computer and make sure that that customer gets charged for that. In the weight ranges or by the cut system, you're going to bring home your meat from the processor, and you're going to separate it into the weight ranges as you put it away and inventory it as you put it away. And so if you've got roasts, you've got 10 roasts, and maybe 4 of them are 2 to 2.5 pounds, and 4 of them are 2.5 to 3 pounds, and 2 of them are 3 to 3.5 pounds. And you're going to update your inventory online at that time. And then when it comes time to fulfill the order, you just go and you find the size that the person ordered. You don't have to enter any weights at that time. The order is complete as soon as you send it out. As I kind of said before, this method really helps remove the uncertainty for customers, and it's much more comfortable for customers to know exactly what their price is going, or exactly what their order is going to cost when they are checking out online. We do recommend, I don't want you to make this too difficult for yourself, so size those weight ranges so that you don't have to separate them into too many different sizes when you're doing inventory, but you still feel like you are getting the value for your cuts. Some people, if you say it's a 2 to 2.5 pound roast, some people will price that weight range at the top of, they will take 2.5 times their price per pound for roast, and they will price it there. Some people will average it from 2 to 2.5 pounds, and they will say, I'm going to price it at exactly what 2.25 pounds would be. There's different strategies to kind of take care of it. People always ask me, don't you have people who get upset if you say it's 2 to 2.5 pounds and then they end up getting one that's 2.1 pounds and you've priced it based on 2.5 pounds? And I can tell you, we have never had a complaint in 5 years of selling online. And thousands and thousands and thousands of orders. We've never had a complaint because a cut was at the smaller end of a weight range. We have had complaints when when a farmer did not fulfill the order properly, and let's say they ordered a 2 to 2.5 pound roast, and the farmer put in a 1.5 pound roast or something like that. That tends to upset customers when they choose a specific weight range and you don't give them the right weight range. Generally, though, if you end up with an inventory issue and you're like, shoot, I don't know what happened, but we don't have any more in that weight range, if you can bump them to a higher weight range, that generally tends to work. Otherwise, we would recommend that you reach out to the customer and say, you know, I messed up. I'm really sorry. I do have a smaller one and I can give it to you at a discount, and do that instead. All right, so I hope that that was helpful for a lot of you. If you are in the midst of choosing a platform for your meat sales, I just want you to know that this is what we have found works better. You do not need to have a platform that can do the exact weight system. Selling it by the cut like this and using weight ranges has worked really well for a lot of the farmers and butcher shops that we have talked to. And that really opens up your possibilities for what platform might be the right fit for you. I would love to hear from you and know another part of this presentation that I'm doing tomorrow is about platforms, and it takes into account all the survey data we've gotten over the years and farmers' general level of satisfaction with the different platforms that are out there. If that's a topic that you'd like to hear about, please go ahead and let us know. You can DM us on Instagram, or you can go to choplocaluniversity.com and click contact us and just send us a quick note. And I would love to know what other things you would like to hear from that survey and what other questions we can answer and how else we can help you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. We'll be back with another interview soon.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Meat Success. We hope this episode gave you fresh insights and inspiration to beef up your meat marketing. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, follow us on social, and share with your fellow farmers and butchers. Have questions or ideas for future podcasts? Reach out to choplocaluniversity.com. Until next time, remember, there's more than one recipe for meat success.